Hey guys, welcome to the gameplay portion of the build. If you guys want the full explanation of the build, I will include it with a skill tree explanation at the second half of the video, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But right now, I'm going to show you guys the dungeon gameplay of this build. Really quickly go over my skill bar here. On our Q, we have Shadow Imbuement, which makes whoever we kill explode. It's good AoE damage. On our W, we have Dash, which is good mobility for our character. On our E is Dark Shroud, which gives us damage reduction and critical strike chance. Very good for range characters because they will not be able to remove your Dark Shroud easily. On our R should be the ultimate, which will be Shadow Clone once you can get it. I'm on the beta, I'm locked at level 20, so I cannot get the ultimate. So the R is just a filler slot for me. I won't be using it this run. Now on our left click, we have Puncture, which makes enemies vulnerable. This helps with your boss damage, your single target damage a lot. And also we have a Penetrating Shot on our right click, which is what this entire build is centered around. So we are also using combo points where we can auto attack 3 times with puncture in order to generate more combo points in order to do penetrating shot, in order for penetrating shot to do more damage. So pretty simple gameplay. Use your dash for mobility or to escape. When you see mobs, literally just press your penetrating shot button with your poison button. And most of the time, they will just completely explode. You can save your poison if there's not a lot of minions. You do want to save it for those fat packs of mobs like you see here, a fat pack of mob, and no more fat pack of mobs. So really satisfying. This is probably one of the fastest clears that Rogue has. The only downside of this build is you kind of, you need a legendary item in order for it to function. So that's basically the only downside. But as you can see here, really powerful build. Everything just kind of it disappears extremely quickly. Because we have a ton of crit on the build. And we have a ton of AoE. So as you can see, that makes quite a lot of difference. And the other best part about the build is once you get the item, it's actually really simple to play this build, right? All you do is you Shadow Imbue and then you Penetrating Shot. You don't even need to puncture if you don't want to sometimes, so it makes it really simple. 2 buttons, everything's dead, and we continue. Whenever your Dark Shroud falls off, of course, make sure to reapply it. But yeah, this is pretty much how the build functions. Now, when you get to maybe an elite or a boss, it will be important to use your puncture every 2 seconds or so because you want to make sure that they're vulnerable. When they're vulnerable, they take 20% extra damage. And of course, if you get any shrines, it'll be even crazier with the shrines. But you guys already saw the gameplay. Looked more or less similar even without the shrine. You're just killing things very, very quickly in general. So that's kind of how this build plays. If you guys want the full explanation, it'll be coming up in the next section here. Hey guys, welcome to the skill tree explanation part of the guide. Now, this guide, of course, is centered around penetrating shot. Now, once again, the downside of this build is you do need to find this legendary imprint of penetrating shot where it splits off and deals, into side arrows that deal additional damage. If you do not have this, this build is not viable. However, if you do find this when you find it, maybe you're lucky and you get it early, definitely don't pass it up because the build can be very, very powerful. And the way that you want to build this in the early portions goes as such. So we start with puncture into fundamental puncture. The build is a little bit lacking in single target damage. It's decent, but it's not the best of the best. So fundamental puncture with the vulnerable, which makes bosses take 20% extra damage. That's going to help you out a lot in terms of single target damage. Moving on to the core skills. Of course, it's a penetrating shot build, so we're going to go for penetrating shot. Keep in mind we're also doing combo points with this in order to buff up the damage. So every time you do the basic attack, you're making your next penetrating shot stronger. And we'll go all the way down into improved penetrating shot, where if you hit at least 3 enemies, then your next one will have 20% more crit chance. This is really, really good And this is basically a guarantee on everything except bosses with the legendary imprint of penetrating shot. Moving on, we're going to put 1 point into dash. I don't need to because I already have an item that gives me 1 point into all of these, but if you need to, put 1 point into dash for your mobility. I do like weapon mastery in order to get as much damage as possible. It's passive damage, very good skill. I tend to max that one. Moving on, I think Exploit is an even better version of Weapon Mastery. I actually think Exploit is the best damage passive you can get in the skill tree. So of course, we're going to max Exploit here as well. And since we're a range character and our build has already got quite a little bit of crit from the improved penetrating shot, we're also going to go Dark Shroud into countering Dark Shroud. Since we are ranged, it is difficult for the mobs to remove the Dark Shroud from us, so we will have this 8% crit chance more often than not, as long as we are careful. And the damage reduction is really nice as well. So we're going to go with 1 point into all of those. If you're later on in the game, of course, you can always consider maxing that out. And for the AoE clear, Shadow Poison really does miracles. Now, if you find that you don't need any more AoE clear, you can always tech in Poison for more single target damage. Poison's also okay AoE clear, but Shadow Poison clears it instantly, whereas Poison takes time. So I prefer Poison for single target damage and Shadow for just AoE mob farming. So most of the time, I think you're going to be mob farming, go with Shadow, but you can keep that in mind. When you get your ultimate, I like Shadow Clone. Once again, I feel like this build is a little bit lacking in single target damage, and Shadow Clone helps you out a lot in single target damage. So Shadow Clone will be my pick once you get to level 25. And that's basically how I would start this build off. Very strong. Remember, the key is this legendary aspect. If you get it, make sure to try it out because it's a lot of fun. You do not want to pass this one by without trying it.